Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time. Way back, to a life that probably seems more like a bad fantasy novel than anything real. Forget everything you know about comfy beds, hot showers, and a fridge full of snacks. We're heading to the muddy fields of medieval Europe, where you'll be stepping into the worn-out, rough-spun shoes of a peasant woman. You'll feel the chill of the unglazed window in your wattle and daub hut. Smell the wood smoke clinging to your clothes. And hear the animals stirring in the night outside your door. It's a harsh world, a world where the line between life and death is a lot blurrier than you're used to. Let's just say, you probably won't survive this week, but at least we can get you to a place of pure, historical peace and quiet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're listening in, let me know where you are and what time it is for you. Drop it in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The night is a thick, cold blanket. You're not just sleeping, you're conserving heat, tucked into a straw-filled sack on a raised platform, sharing the space with your family and maybe a few animals. There's no snooze button on the rooster, who's already crowing a frantic, off-key anthem from somewhere outside. The darkness is absolute, punctuated only by the dying embers of the hearth fire, and a single, sleepy thought crawls into your head. It's too cold to move. But move you must. A medieval peasant's life doesn't start with a leisurely stretch. It begins with an immediate, urgent assault of reality. The year is, let's say, 1340, and you are a woman named Alara, living in a small village in what we'd now call England. You're a serf, which means you and your labor belong to the lord of the manor. You don't own the land. You don't own much of anything. And your life is an endless loop of obligation and survival. The first act of your day, before the sun has even thought about making an appearance, is to tend to the fire. You slide out from under the scratchy wool blanket and shuffle barefoot across the packed dirt floor. The cold bites your feet. You rake the ashes, find a faint glow, and carefully add a few small sticks and a bit of dried peat. Blowing gently, you coax the embers back to life. A thin curl of smoke rises, smelling of wood and earth. And soon, a small, welcoming flame begins to dance. This isn't just for warmth. It's for everything. The fire is your stove, your sterilizer, your light, your defense against the damp. Without it, you're lost. Once the fire is sputtering, you fetch water from the well. Your village is lucky. The well is close. Some women have to trudge a mile or more to a stream. You haul the heavy wooden bucket, the cold metal handle biting your palm, and trudge back. The water is frigid, and it's your first test of strength for the day. This water is for drinking, for cooking, for washing. You use it to make pottage, the thick, staple stew of your diet. Historians still argue whether the pottage was mostly grain or vegetables depending on the season. But for now, you know it's the only hot thing you'll get for a while. You pour a small amount of the cold water into a cauldron hanging over the fire and toss in a handful of whatever is on hand, maybe some barley, a few dried peas, a root vegetable if you're lucky. This is the meal that will fuel your husband and children for the morning's work. While it simmers, you turn to your children. A historical tidbit that might make you wince. Medieval parents didn't always name their babies immediately. Sometimes, they'd wait a few days or weeks to see if the child would survive the treacherous early days of life. You've already lost one, a tiny boy you named Walter. But not before he'd earned his name. This morning, you gently wake your 2-year-old daughter, pulling her close to warm her by the fire before the rest of the day's demands pull you away. You can't afford to be sentimental. Sentimentality doesn't fill bellies. The pottage is ready, a thick, steaming grayish sludge that will have to do. You ladle it into wooden bowls, or perhaps just a single communal pot, and the family huddles together to eat. The taste is bland, earthy, but the warmth is a small, vital comfort. Your husband, a strong-backed man named Thomas, is already thinking about the fields. The children, still sleepy, eat quietly. This morning routine isn't a moment for conversation. It's a quiet, efficient fueling of bodies that will soon be put to grueling work. You are just one cog in this family machine. But without you, the entire operation grinds to a halt. You are the one who ensures the fire stays lit, the food is prepared, and the children are cared for. After the meager breakfast, your first major task of the day is often to take care of the livestock. A crucial part of the family's survival. If you are lucky enough to have a pig, you must slop it with scraps and whatever else is available. A pig is more than a future meal. It's a living bank account. A store of fat and protein for the lean times. You also have a few chickens. Scrawny things that peck at the dirt. You check for eggs, a rare and precious find. Each egg is a tiny miracle. A bit of extra nutrition that might make the difference between a hungry day and a just surviving one. The sound of the chickens clucking and the pig grunting is a constant, low-level backdrop to your life. A living reminder of your dependence on these animals. Then, there are the children, the younger ones, like your daughter, will stay with you or an older relative during the day. You don't have the luxury of a dedicated play area or toys. Their world is the small, smoky cottage and the yard. You must keep them safe from the fire, from the animals, from the various dangers of a pre-industrial world. You might have a child to look after who is just a little older than a baby, maybe 5 or 6, who already has small chores to do. This is a far cry from our modern idea of childhood. A fringe tidbit for you. Some historians believe that because infant and child mortality was so high, parents in this era may have been emotionally guarded with their children. It wasn't a lack of love, but a form of self-preservation in the face of frequent loss. You love your daughter fiercely, but a small, pragmatic voice in your head reminds you that life is fragile. Once the animals and children are settled, your work shifts to the home itself. You might have to mend clothing, a constant chore given the rough, hand-woven fabrics. The threads are coarse, and your fingers are already calloused. But you must keep the clothes from falling apart completely. You might need to grind some grain for tomorrow's pottage using a heavy stone quern. This is a slow, tedious, and physically demanding task. The rhythmic scraping of the stone is a familiar sound, a metronome for your life, a mainstream historical fact you feel in your bones. The peasant diet was overwhelmingly cereal-based. Sometimes up to 75% of your calories coming from grains like barley, rye, and oats. Your diet is a constant reminder of your place on the food chain. A long way down from the Lord's table, where roasted meats and fine bread are a daily reality. All the while, you are thinking about the day's bigger work. You are a woman, but you are not confined to the home. You will soon join the men in the fields. But first, you have to prepare for it. You grab a small bag for your midday meal, perhaps a bit of hard cheese or a crust of bread, and a gourd of water. You check on your daughter one last time. A quick, reassuring touch on her head. The sun is now a thin, watery glow in the sky, and it's a signal that the real work is about to begin. Historians still argue about the exact division of labor between men and women in various parts of medieval Europe. Was it a clear split? Or did the needs of the season and the family dictate who did what? For you, the answer is simple. You do whatever needs to be done. With the sun a little higher, the cold of the morning starts to surrender to a damp, gray light. You pull on a warm wool shawl and head out. The door a creaking testament to the constant use it gets. The air is thick with the smells of damp earth, animal waste, and the distant wood smoke from other cottages. You walk down the single dirt track that serves as the village's main thoroughfare. Your feet used to the uneven ground and the occasional puddles. The men are already a little ahead of you, their figures dark against the rising light. You're all heading to the same place, the Lord's fields. This is the main event of your day, the core of your existence as a serf. You don't get to work your own small plot of land yet. That comes later. If there's any time or energy left. No, your primary duty is to the lord of the manor. This is called corvée labor, a mainstream historical fact that feels less like a fact and more like a never-ending ache in your lower back. The field is a huge, open expanse, and the work is a brutal, repetitive rhythm. Today, it's probably weeding. You bend over, your fingers digging into the cold soil, pulling up the tough weeds that threaten the barley crop. Your knuckles are chapped and sore, and the dirt gets under your fingernails, a permanent reminder of your station. The work is communal, but it's not exactly a jolly picnic. You work alongside the other women of the village, and there's a low hum of chatter, mostly about the children, the weather, and the never-ending struggles of life. Sometimes, there's a shared complaint or a dry joke about the Lord's laziness, whispered just loud enough for a fellow worker to hear but quiet enough to not get you in trouble. This shared misery, this quiet solidarity, is one of the few small comforts you have. It's a human connection forged in the mud and the sun. A quirky tidbit from the past. Some medieval legal codes outline specific punishments for serfs who worked too slowly in the Lord's fields. The idea was to keep you from slacking off on his land to save your energy for your own. A very subtle, and very effective, form of control. You can feel the sun on your back now, a faint warmth that doesn't quite take the chill away. Your muscles are already starting to protest, a familiar burning in your shoulders and neck. You've been doing this since you were a child, learning from your mother, just as your daughter will one day learn from you. There's no escaping it, no other career path to choose from. Your life is tied to the land, to the seasons, to the will of the Lord. Your hands, once soft and small, are now tough and calloused, a testament to the life you lead. The field seems to stretch on forever, an endless sea of green shoots and stubborn weeds. The men are a little farther down, maybe plowing with a team of oxen. A slow, methodical march. The division of labor is clear but flexible. While men might handle the heavy plowing, women are often responsible for weeding, harvesting, and threshing, all backbreaking tasks in their own right. Historians still argue about the exact gender roles in medieval agriculture. Did women do the same amount of work? Or was their labor seen as supplemental? For you, the debate is irrelevant. You are out here, working just as hard as Thomas, and the harvest depends on both of you. You remember last year's harvest, how the wheat was thin and the winter was long. The memory makes you work a little faster, a small act of desperation against a future that feels all too real. The sun climbs higher, a pale and indifferent eye in the sky, and you feel the familiar ache settle deep into your bones. The midday call comes not from a whistle or a clock, but from the shadow you cast. When it's at its shortest, it's time for the midday meal. This isn't a break for relaxation, it's a short, functional pause to refuel. The communal work stops. The rhythmic scrape of hose and the low murmur of voices fall silent. You straighten your back, a slow and deliberate movement, and feel a small, sharp pain between your shoulder blades. You make your way to a ditch at the edge of the field, where you and the others have left your small, meager provisions. You unwrap the piece of bread you brought, hard and dense, maybe with a small piece of cheese you managed to save. You sit on the damp ground, a little apart from the men, and take a long drink from your water gourd. This isn't a social gathering, not really. It's a moment of quiet, personal nourishment. The food is plain, but it's enough to keep you going for the afternoon. A fringe tidbit that might surprise you. While peasants' diets were often monotonous, they weren't necessarily underfed. In a good year, they could consume around 3.00 calories a day to fuel all the backbreaking work. The problem wasn't always quantity, but a serious lack of variety and essential nutrients. This diet would lead to all sorts of health issues. But right now, you just feel the solid weight of the bread in your stomach and are grateful for the temporary fullness. The other women eat in a similar fashion, their faces tired and caked with dirt. There's a brief moment of quiet contemplation, a chance for your mind to drift. You might think about your children, about what you'll make for supper, about the small, mending jobs that await you back at the cottage. You feel the sun on your skin and the cool dampness of the ground beneath you. It's a fleeting moment of peace in a life defined by constant, unrelenting labor. You might even steal a glance at Thomas, a few paces away, his face grimed with dirt, his calloused hands holding his own bread. There's a silent understanding between you, a shared burden that doesn't need to be spoken. The break is over almost as soon as it begins. There is no lingering, no second helpings. The unspoken rule is that you eat and then you get back to work. You stand up, every joint and muscle protesting, and walk back to your designated section of the field. The work in the afternoon feels harder than in the morning. The sun, even on a cloudy day, saps your energy. You feel the ache in your lower back intensify. A deep, persistent throb. Your hands are a mess of scrapes and blisters. But you've learned to ignore the pain. It's a constant companion, like the smell of wood smoke and the low hum of the village. A mainstream historical fact that makes your work even more exhausting. Medieval farming was a communal effort governed by the three-field system. The village fields were divided into 3 large plots. One was planted in winter with crops like wheat, another with spring crops like oats, and the third was left fallow to recover its nutrients. This system meant that the lord's land, and your labor, was always in demand. Historians still argue about the precise efficiency of this system. Was it truly the best way to farm? Or was it simply the most convenient way for the lord to control the land and his workers? For you, all you know is that the fields are vast and the work is endless. As you reach down to pull another tough weed, you feel the weight of centuries of farming tradition on your shoulders. The afternoon stretches on, a slow, grueling marathon of repetitive labor. The sun begins its slow descent, and the air cools, but the heat of your exertion keeps you sweating. You don't have a clock, but you can feel the day winding down. The shadows lengthen, and the Lord's bailiff, the man who oversees the work, finally gives a signal. The work in the fields is done for the day. But your work, Alara, is far from over. You trudge back to the village, your body screaming for rest. The walk is a mirror image of the morning, only now you're heavier, slower, and the thought of your warm, smoky cottage is the only thing driving you forward. You pass the other villages, all of you silent in your exhaustion, a shared fatigue that needs no words. You arrive back at your small hut, the door a welcome sight. Inside, your daughter is playing with a few wooden sticks, a small pile of dirt her entire universe. She looks up at you, her face lighting up, and for a moment, the exhaustion fades. You crouch down and give her a quick hug, the smell of her hair a comforting, familiar scent. After a quick, simple supper of more pottage, your work shifts from the outdoors to the indoors. This is the second shift, the part of the day no one outside your household ever sees. This is where your true craftsmanship comes into play. You sit by the fire, its warmth a soothing balm for your aching muscles, and pull out a distaff and spindle. The distaff is a stick holding a bundle of raw wool, and the spindle is a small, weighted stick used to twist the fibers into thread. This is a quiet, meditative task. The rhythmic hum of the spindle a new kind of metronome for your evening. A mainstream historical fact you feel in your hands. Spinning wool was an almost universal task for medieval women, regardless of their social class. The word spinster originally just meant a woman who spun wool. But for you, it's not a quaint hobby. This thread you are creating is a vital part of your family's economy. It will be woven into clothing, blankets, and sacks. The quality of your thread determines the quality of the finished product. And a strong, even thread is a point of pride. You might even sell some of the finished cloth at the market. A small bit of extra income for your family. As you spin, your mind is free to wander. You might hum a simple tune or listen to the low murmur of your husband speaking to your son. A quirky historical tidbit that might make you smile. Sometimes, women would gather together for spinning bees or quilting parties. Not just to work, but to gossip and share stories. These gatherings were a vital part of a medieval woman's social life. A rare chance to connect with other women without the constant demands of children or men. You miss those gatherings, but tonight, the work must be done alone. The firelight flickers on the walls, and the shadows dance. You can hear the steady, rhythmic breathing of your children as they fall asleep. Your hands move automatically, the motions of spinning so ingrained they are a part of you. This isn't a task you can rush. It requires patience and focus. Historians still argue about the economic value of a woman's domestic labor. Was it seen as equal to a man's labor in the fields? Or was it dismissed as a natural, unpaid extension of her duties? For you, the answer is irrelevant. The fact is, without your spinning, without your mending, without your cooking, your family wouldn't survive the next winter. And that, in your mind, is all the value you need to know. The spinning continues until your eyes grow heavy and the fire in the hearth dwindles to a warm glow. You and Thomas share a final, simple meal, and then it's back to the straw-filled pallet. Another day is done, a near-perfect replica of the one before it and the one that will follow. But not every day is spent in the fields and by the hearth. There are rare, precious breaks in the routine. And today, you're looking forward to one. It's market day. You wake with a different kind of energy, a small spark of anticipation in your chest. Market day is a big deal. It's a chance to step outside the narrow confines of your village and interact with the wider world. Even if that world is just the next town over. This morning, after the usual chores, you carefully prepare. You're not getting ready for a party. You're preparing for a business trip. You gather up the fruits of your labor, a few eggs, a small wheel of hard cheese you've made, maybe a piece of cloth you've finished. These are your trade goods. Your currency, money, in the form of coins, is rare in your world. Barter is the primary way of doing business. You place the goods in a rough spun sack and set off with Thomas. The walk to the market town is longer, but the atmosphere is different. There are other villages on the road, all of you walking with a shared purpose. The road is dusty, full of ruts and hoofprints. And the journey is not easy. You're walking, of course. No one you know has a horse. And the Lord's horse is a far-off dream. A mainstream historical fact that you feel in your feet. Travel for peasants was incredibly limited. Most people would live and die within a few miles of where they were born. A journey to a market town was a significant undertaking. A full day's commitment, and the farthest you'll likely ever travel. When you arrive at the market, the scene is overwhelming. The sounds, the smells, the sheer number of people, it's a sensory assault. There are pigs squealing, chickens clucking, vendors shouting their wares. The air smells of baking bread, tanned leather, and unwashed bodies. You and Thomas find a small space on the ground and lay out your goods. You're not selling from a fancy store. You're selling from a blanket on the dirt. You're looking to trade. Maybe you need a new tool for the field, or some salt to preserve meat for the winter. You'll trade your cheese for a length of rope, or your eggs for a few nails. A quirky historical tidbit that you find amusing, in some medieval markets. Local guilds would have inspectors whose job was to ensure the quality of goods. If your bread was found to be too small or your cheese was of poor quality, you could be publicly shamed or fined. A nice little slice of ancient consumer protection. I guess. You're confident in your goods. You know your cheese is good. Market day isn't just for commerce, though. It's also for news. You get to hear about what's happening in the next village, what the Lord's latest decree is, and who has gotten married or had a baby. It's a vital social hub, a place to connect and feel a part of something larger. As you haggle over the price of a small bag of salt, you overhear a merchant talking about a new kind of crop being grown in a far-off kingdom. The information is fleeting and probably exaggerated, but it's a whisper of the world beyond your own little patch of mud. Historians still argue about how much information peasants actually had about the outside world. Was it just gossip and rumors? Or were they more connected than we think? You feel like you're in the middle of a swirling vortex of hearsay and half-truths. But you soak it all in. You return from the market with your goods and a head full of fresh news. But the exhaustion from the long walk quickly sets in. The dirt and grime from the road and the fields cling to you. A constant companion. For a medieval peasant woman, personal hygiene is a concept that is very different from our own. It's not about being clean, in a modern sense. It's about survival, preventing illness, and simply getting by with what you have. Tonight, After the long, tiring day, you decide to give yourself and the children a rare treat, a bath. This is not a hot shower or a leisurely soak in a porcelain tub. This is a bucket of cold water, hauled from the well and warmed slightly over the fire. You take a big wooden bucket, and you and the children take turns washing. A mainstream historical fact that might make you squirm: bathing was not a common practice. Many people would only bathe a few times a year, often in a communal washhouse or a river in the summer. Your little wooden bucket is a luxury, a special effort after an especially grueling day. You scrub at the grime on your hands and face, feeling the cold water bite your skin. You don't have soap. Maybe you use a bit of lye made from wood ashes and fat. A harsh and abrasive substance that gets the job done but leaves your skin dry and rough. A quirky historical tidbit that might make you a little grossed out, for some. The lack of bathing and washing of clothes led to a constant battle with lice and fleas. Medieval people were not strangers to this constant itching discomfort, and they had a variety of folk remedies for it, from carrying sachets of strong-smelling herbs to simply accepting it as a part of life. You do your best to keep yourself and your children as clean as possible. But you know the bugs are always there, a little-known, uninvited part of your community. The concept of health is tied to cleanliness in a way that feels foreign to us today. You believe that cold water is good for your health, a way to close the pores and keep out bad air. You also believe that the cold air after a bath could bring sickness. So you huddle by the fire to dry off. There's a certain logic to it, a folk wisdom that has been passed down for generations. The real luxury isn't the cleanliness itself, but the feeling of being refreshed, even for a short time. After the children are washed and wrapped in a warm blanket, you turn your attention to yourself. You wash your hair, a long and arduous process. You don't have shampoo, just the same water and perhaps a few herbs to make it smell a little better. Your hair is thick and heavy, and the cold water makes your scalp tingle. You comb it with a wooden comb, a simple act that feels like a small rebellion against the chaos of the day. You feel a small sense of dignity in this act, a brief moment of self-care in a life that is almost entirely about serving others. Historians still argue about the medieval peasant's attitude towards cleanliness. Was it seen as a lack of virtue to be dirty? Or was it simply an unavoidable part of a tough life? For you, the answer is somewhere in between. You know that cleanliness is hard to come by, but you also know that the feeling of a clean face and hands, even if it's just for an hour, makes you feel a little more human. As you dry yourself by the fire, you feel the day's tensions start to melt away. The market, the long walk, the haggling over salt, it all fades into the warm glow of the hearth. A rare and wonderful sound ripples through the village. The bell from the small parish church is ringing in a different, more joyful rhythm. This isn't the usual solemn call to prayer. This is the sound of a feast, a community celebration. You've been working hard all day, but as you hear the bell, a small thrill of excitement runs through you. This is a break from the relentless grind, a chance to come together as a community and celebrate something, anything. Today, the Lord is hosting a feast to celebrate a good harvest. Or perhaps it's a saint's day, a mainstream historical fact you live by. Feasts and festivals were vital for medieval peasants, serving as a social pressure valve and a way to build community bonds. They were the only form of mass entertainment you'd ever experience. You quickly finish your last chore, and you and your family make your way to the village green. The scene is one of controlled chaos. The Lord has provided a roasted pig, a rare and incredible treat. The smell of the roasting meat is intoxicating, a stark contrast to the bland pottage you eat every day. People are gathered in small groups, laughing and talking. There's a musician, a traveling minstrel who has come to play for the occasion. The sound of his lute and his simple, rhythmic songs fills the air. And for a moment, you forget your aching back and your calloused hands. The food is laid out on long, rough-hewn tables. There's coarse bread, some cheese, and of course, the roasted pig. You get a piece of the crackling, salty skin, and the taste is a revelation. You eat with your hands. Of course, forks are an unheard of luxury. a bizarre tool for the elite. You and your family sit on the ground, sharing a space with other families. And for a few hours, the usual social boundaries are blurred. The Lord's men might be there, but today, they are just people enjoying a meal, not overseers. A quirky historical tidbit that you find amusing: it was considered good manners at a medieval feast to not take too much of the bread. It was a communal trencher, a plate for the entire group, and taking too much was a sign of greed. You try to keep an eye on your son, lest he get too enthusiastic with the bread. The feast is more than just food. It's a chance for the community to come together. The children run and play, something they rarely have time to do. You get to gossip with the other women, catching up on news that didn't make it to the market. You talk about births and deaths, marriages and sickness. It's a chance to share your burdens and your joys, to feel a part of a larger whole. You feel a sense of camaraderie, a shared humanity that is often lost in the day-to-day struggle for survival. Historians still argue about the true purpose of these feasts. Were they a genuine act of generosity from the Lord, a way to build loyalty and goodwill? Or were they a calculated political move, a way to keep the peasants happy enough to not rebel? For you, the answer is simple. You don't care about the politics. All you know is that you're eating delicious food. Your family is safe, and for a few precious hours, the relentless work of your life has stopped. The minstrel is playing a lively tune, and you find yourself tapping your foot to the rhythm. The air is cool, the fire is bright, and for one brief, shining moment, your life feels full of warmth and laughter. It's a feeling you'll carry with you long after the feast is over and the daily grind resumes. The morning after the feast is a return to reality. The happy sounds of the celebration are replaced by the familiar sounds of the village, the chickens, the rooster, the rustle of straw. Your work continues, but today you have a new task. Your son has a cough, and it's a deep, hacking sound that worries you. The chill from last night's festivities might have caught up to him. In your world, there are no doctors in the modern sense. There is no village apothecary or official medic. You are the family's first line of defense against sickness, and your knowledge of herbal remedies is a matter of life and death. You go out into the small garden patch behind your hut, a tiny square of earth you painstakingly tend. You kneel on the ground, your fingers carefully searching for the right plants. You know which weeds are actually useful, a mainstream historical fact you feel in your hands. Medieval peasants had a deep, practical knowledge of local plants and their medicinal properties. This wasn't just superstition, it was a form of folk medicine that, while not always effective by modern standards, was all you had. You're looking for a plant called horehound, which you know can be boiled into a tea to soothe the cough. You also pick some elderflower, which you'll mix with water to make a poultice for a small cut on your husband's arm. Your knowledge of these plants is a legacy, passed down from your mother and her mother before her. You know which ones are safe, which are poisonous, and which ones have a bit of magic in them. A quirky historical tidbit that you believe with all your heart. Some people believe that the effectiveness of these herbal remedies was often tied to superstition and folklore. You might say a small prayer over the horehound as you pick it, asking for the plant's power to heal your son. This blend of practical knowledge and folk belief is a constant part of your life. The two are intertwined, and you can't separate them. You return to the hut and begin the process. You put a small amount of water in a pot and add the horehound. The water begins to boil, and a bitter, earthy smell fills the small space. Your son watches you, his small face pale. You reassure him with a gentle touch, a small act of love and comfort. When the tea is ready, you pour it into a small wooden bowl and let it cool. It doesn't taste good, and your son makes a face, but he knows he must drink it. The warmth of the tea seems to soothe his throat, and the coughing lessens. Your role as a healer isn't limited to your own family. The women of the village often share their knowledge, and sometimes, you might be asked to help a neighbor. You remember helping a woman give birth last year, a terrifying and beautiful experience that ended in a healthy baby. You used your knowledge of herbs to ease the pain and to clean the mother afterward. This is your power, your expertise. It's not something you get a title for, or get paid for, but it is a vital part of your contribution to the community. Historians still argue whether this folk medicine was a true medical system or simply a set of well-intentioned, but often ineffective, practices. For you, the answer is irrelevant. The fact is, you are doing all you can with the knowledge you have. And your son's cough is already sounding better. The rhythm of life continues. A cycle of work, rest, and occasional feasts. But as you grow older, a new chapter looms. You're not a young girl anymore, but you remember what it was like. You didn't have the luxury of a modern courtship, with romantic dates and heartfelt confessions. Your marriage to Thomas was a different kind of affair entirely. It was a contract, a union of two families, and a practical necessity. You remember the day he came to your family's hut with his father. You were a teenager, and you were not consulted. The two fathers sat by the fire and talked about your worth. It wasn't about love or feelings. It was about the dowry your family could provide and the labor you could contribute. A mainstream historical fact you feel in your very being. Marriage for medieval peasants was more of an economic and social transaction than a romantic one. Your value was tied to your ability to work the fields, to bear children, and to manage a household. You were a part of the family's wealth, a living, breathing asset. Your marriage to Thomas was arranged, but it wasn't a cold, impersonal affair. You knew him, you had grown up in the same village, seen him in the fields and at the feasts. There was a sense of familiarity, a quiet understanding. You knew he was a good man, hard-working and strong. You didn't love him on your wedding day, but you grew to love him. Love wasn't a prerequisite for marriage. It was often a product of it. Something that grew over time in the shared struggle of life. The wedding itself was a simple affair, a small ceremony in the parish church, followed by a feast with your families and neighbors. There were no white dresses, no elaborate decorations, just a simple blessing from the priest and a shared meal. You were a young woman, and you were now a wife, a partner in the endless work of farming and survival. You were no longer just a daughter. You were the head of a new household. A quirky historical tidbit that might make you a little uncomfortable. It was believed that on your wedding night, the community had the right to watch you and your new husband to ensure the marriage was consummated. This was a way of ensuring the legitimacy of the union. A bit of a nightmare scenario for us. But for them, it was just a strange, traditional custom. Your marriage is a partnership. But it's a partnership with a clear division of labor. Thomas handles the heavy work in the fields, the plowing and the reaping. You manage the household, the children, and the small garden. But this division is fluid. You work side by side in the fields during the harvest, and he might help you with a heavy chore in the hut. Your relationship is built on this foundation of mutual respect and shared struggle. Historians still argue about the power dynamic in a medieval peasant marriage. Was the man truly the head of the household? Or did the woman hold a significant amount of power and influence in the domestic sphere? For you, the answer is somewhere in between. Thomas is the head of the household in a public sense. But in the small, smoky world of your hut, your word carries significant weight. You are the one who knows how much food you have, how much wool needs to be spun, and when the children need to be doctored. Your life, your home, your family, they are your kingdom, and you are its queen. The quiet partnership with Thomas has blossomed into a family, a precious and vulnerable entity in a world of hardship. But having a family meant facing the most perilous moment in a medieval woman's life, childbirth. It's not an event you look forward to, it's a trial you dread. There are no hospitals, no doctors in the modern sense. The only help you have is from the other women in the village. Led by an experienced elder, the village midwife. A mainstream historical fact you feel in the deepest part of your bones. Childbirth was the leading cause of death for women of childbearing age throughout the medieval period. This wasn't a matter of if you would face danger, but how you would survive it. You're in your small, smoky hut, and the pain is a relentless, tearing sensation that consumes your entire world. The other women are there, a silent, comforting presence. The midwife is the one in charge. She has seen this countless times. She has seen it go well. And she has seen it end in tragedy. You lie on a straw-filled pallet. Your grip tight on the hands of the women beside you. They whisper words of encouragement. And they tell you to push. To bear down. A quirky historical tidbit that might make you a little queasy. Medieval midwives believed that certain herbs, like pennyroyal and mugwort, could help with a difficult birth. They would sometimes make you drink a bitter concoction of these herbs. A desperate attempt to help you in any way they could. The baby is coming, a new life entering a world that is already so full of hardship. You feel the pain and the pressure, and for a moment, you fear you won't survive. You pray to the Virgin Mary, and you hope that this new life, a son, will be strong enough to make it. The midwife is a steady presence, her hands firm and experienced. She knows the signs of trouble, and she knows when to get a little more forceful. She's not a doctor, but she is a skilled practitioner of a different kind of medicine, the medicine of experience and folk wisdom. And then, with a final, searing pain, your son is born. His cry is the sweetest sound you've ever heard. The midwife cleans him and wraps him in a rough cloth, and places him in your arms. He is small and red and perfect. A new member of your family. A new mouth to feed. A new set of hands to one day work the fields. You feel a wave of love and relief. A powerful, overwhelming emotion. But even in this moment of joy, a small, quiet fear lingers. You know that a third of all babies won't survive to their first birthday. You know that this new life is fragile, and the world is a dangerous place. You hold him close, a silent promise to protect him from the harsh realities of your life. Your role as a mother is a constant state of vigilance. You must feed him, keep him warm, and protect him from sickness. You will nurse him for as long as you can. A mainstream historical fact that was a natural form of birth control and nourishment. You will teach him how to be a good man, how to work the fields, and how to survive. Historians still argue about the emotional lives of medieval mothers. Was the constant threat of infant mortality a way to harden their hearts? Or did it make them love their children even more fiercely? For you, the answer is simple. You love your son with every fiber of your being, and you will do everything in your power to keep him alive. The day after the birth, you are already up and about. Your body sore but your heart full, ready to face the world with a new sense of purpose. You have survived, and so have your children. A small miracle in a world of high mortality. Years pass in a blur of seasons and work, and you find yourself in a new stage of life. Your children are now grown. Your son is a strong, hard-working man, with a family of his own. Your daughter has married a man from the next village over and has her own brood of children. The hut is a little quieter now, and you find yourself with a new kind of time on your hands. You're not working in the fields every day, not in the same grueling way. You're becoming an elder, a respected figure in the community, a mainstream historical fact that you feel in your bones, while life expectancy was low. If you survived the treacherous early years of childhood, you had a decent chance of living into your 50s and 60s. Your body is a testament to this fact. You have a lifetime of aches and pains. Your back is permanently bowed, and your hands are gnarled and stiff from years of labor. But you are still here. You are a repository of knowledge, a living history book for your community. The younger women come to you for advice on childbirth, for help with a sick child, for a simple word of encouragement. Your knowledge of herbal remedies is now legendary in the village, and you are often called upon to help a neighbor. This is a new kind of power. You don't have the physical strength of your youth, but you have wisdom and experience. You're a crone, a word that doesn't have the negative connotation it does today. It simply means an old woman, a woman who has survived and has seen it all. You are a living bridge between the past and the future, a quirky historical tidbit that you find interesting in some medieval communities. Old women were thought to have special powers. They were seen as being closer to the spiritual world, and their blessings and curses were taken seriously. You are aware of this belief, and you use it to your advantage sometimes, with a knowing wink and a well-timed curse on a field of weeds. But this new stage of life also brings loss. The day comes when Thomas, Your quiet, strong partner passes away. It's a sad day, but it's not a surprise. He lived a good life, a long life for your time, and he died in his sleep. A peaceful end that many people don't get. You are now a widow, and this is another significant shift in your life. You're no longer defined by your husband. You are an independent woman, in a way that you never were before. Your son and his family live with you, or perhaps you live in a smaller hut of your own. But you are not a burden. Your labor is still valuable. You spin wool. You care for the grandchildren. You tend your small garden. You are still an active and vital part of the family and the community. Historians still argue about the social status of widows in medieval society. Were they seen as a drain on resources? Or were they a respected part of the community, a source of wisdom and stability? For you, the answer is clear. You are a respected member of your community. You have lived through so much. And you have so much to offer. You watch your grandchildren play. Their laughter a sweet sound in the quiet of your home. You feel the warmth of the hearth on your old hands and you feel a sense of peace. You have lived a hard life. But you have lived it well. Life, in its cyclical nature, continues to present new challenges and comforts. As you age, your life becomes more intertwined with the rhythms of the church. It's a constant, steady presence, from the sound of the bell every morning to the parish priest's sermon every Sunday. This isn't a choice. It's a fundamental part of your world. The church dictates your calendar, your moral code, and your understanding of the universe. A mainstream historical fact you live by: the church was the single most powerful and unifying institution in medieval Europe. It wasn't just a building where you went to pray. It was the hub of your village, the keeper of records, and the arbiter of disputes. It was the only source of education for a few, and the only source of hope for most. You attend Mass every Sunday, not just for spiritual nourishment, but for social cohesion. It's where you see everyone, where you hear the news, and where you feel a part of something larger than yourself. The church's influence is everywhere. It's in the holy days that break up the monotony of the work week. Days when you're not allowed to work in the fields. It's in the sacraments, the rituals that mark the milestones of your life, the baptism of your children, your marriage to Thomas, and the final rites for the dead. It's in the constant, ever-present fear of damnation. You've been told since you were a child that life on earth is a test. A brief and painful sojourn before an eternity in either heaven or hell. This fear is a powerful motivator. It keeps you honest, it keeps you in line, and it keeps you going to church every Sunday. A quirky historical tidbit that you find both fascinating and a little intimidating: the church had its own courts. And it would prosecute people for moral crimes, like adultery or heresy. These courts were sometimes more feared than the Lord's court, as the punishment could be excommunication, a social death sentence that meant you couldn't be buried in hallowed ground. This constant surveillance, this constant fear of the divine, is a part of your daily life. You might joke about it with the other women, but you never take it lightly. But the church is not just a source of fear, it is also a source of comfort. The priest, a man who lives a life of poverty like you do, is a source of wisdom and guidance. He is there for you in your moments of grief, in your moments of joy, and in your moments of doubt. He is the one who will pray for your family, who will intercede with God on your behalf. Historians still argue about the true nature of the relationship between the medieval peasant and the church. Was it a relationship of genuine faith? Or was it a relationship of fear and obligation? For you, the answer is simple: it's both. You genuinely believe in God, and you genuinely fear His wrath. The church is a part of your life, a part of your identity, and a part of your hope for a better life after this one. As you kneel in the hard, cold pews of the small parish church, you feel a sense of peace, a sense of belonging, and a sense of hope that is hard to find in the muddy fields and smoky cottages of your world. The years continue to pass, and a new, terrifying rumor begins to spread through the village. It's a whisper on the wind, a story carried by a traveling merchant and confirmed by the priest. It is a plague, a pestilence of a kind you have never seen before. sweeping across the continent and leaving death in its wake. At first, it's a distant story, a nightmare happening far away in Italy and France. You listen to the stories with a sense of morbid fascination, but you don't really believe it will reach your small, isolated village. You are wrong. The Black Death arrives like a thief in the night. The first to get sick is a young boy from a neighboring village. He gets a high fever, and then large, black swellings appear in his armpits and groin. He is dead within 2 days. Then, it's a woman from your own village, a friend of yours. She too dies quickly, and the terror begins to set in. A mainstream historical fact that you witness firsthand, the Black Death. A bubonic plague wiped out an estimated 1/3 to half of Europe's population between 1347 and 1351. The sheer scale of the death is incomprehensible, and it turns your world upside down. The plague is a horrifying, chaotic time. The priest is overwhelmed, performing last rites for multiple people a day. The gravedigger can't keep up, and the air is thick with the smell of death. You and the other women of the village are on the front lines, trying to care for the sick with your herbal remedies. But nothing works. The sickness is too fast, too vicious. People abandon their homes, their families, in a desperate attempt to escape the plague. But there is no escaping it. It's in the air, in the fleas that live on the rats, in the clothes of the dead. It is everywhere. A quirky historical tidbit that you witness. Some people believe that the plague was caused by bad air, or miasma. They would burn sweet-smelling herbs, like juniper and rosemary, in an attempt to purify the air. You do this too, a small, futile attempt to protect your family from an invisible enemy. The smell of the burning herbs is a constant, fragrant backdrop to the horror of the plague. It is a desperate act of hope in a world without any. The plague changes everything. Your husband, Thomas, is one of the victims. He gets sick, and he is gone within a day. You are left alone, a widow in a world that is falling apart. But in the midst of this chaos, a strange and unexpected thing happens. The lord of the manor, a man who has always been a distant, powerful figure, dies from the plague. His family dies too. The land, the very thing that has bound you to your life of serfdom, is now without a master. The Lord's land, a place where you have worked and toiled your entire life, is now empty. The surviving serfs, a small fraction of the original population, are left to figure out what happens next. Historians still argue whether the Black Death was the primary cause of the end of feudalism. Did the massive loss of life create a labor shortage that empowered the surviving peasants? For you, the answer is not a historical debate, it's a tangible reality. You are still alive, and you are no longer bound to a lord. The world has changed forever. The air is different now. The smell of death is gone, replaced by the scent of green shoots pushing up from the fertile soil. The village is quieter, emptier. You still see the occasional empty hut, a grim reminder of those who are gone. But there is also a new energy, a new sense of possibility. The old world, the one you knew your entire life, is crumbling. A new one is being born in its place. And you, an old woman who has survived the plague, are a witness to its birth. The feudal system is in its death throes. With so many people gone, the lords who have survived are desperate for labor. The surviving serfs, once tied to the land by law and custom, are now in a position of power. They can demand wages. They can move to a different village if their lord is too cruel. They can even, in some rare cases, buy their own small plots of land. This is the first taste of true freedom you've ever had. A mainstream historical fact you feel in your very being. The massive loss of life from the Black Death created a labor shortage that fundamentally changed the relationship between lords and peasants, leading to the eventual decline of serfdom. The world is a different place now. The whispers of change are everywhere. You hear about peasants in other villages refusing to work for free, demanding to be paid in coin. You hear about new laws being passed, trying to force people back into the old ways. But they are unenforceable. The old systems of control are breaking down, and there is nothing to replace them. You feel a sense of both hope and fear. Hope for a better future for your grandchildren, For a life that isn't defined by a Lord's whim, but also fear, because a world without a clear order is a scary, unpredictable place. What will a world without lords look like? Who will protect you? Who will you turn to for justice? A quirky historical tidbit that you find both fascinating and a little unsettling. Some historians believe that the plague led to a cultural shift in how people viewed death and religion. With so many people dying so quickly, the traditional funeral rites were often abandoned. People started to question the power of the church and the morality of a God who would allow such a tragedy to happen. You don't question your faith, but you do notice that the priest's sermons are a little more somber, a little less certain. The world has been shaken to its core, and even the church is not immune. The end of this era is not a sudden, violent event. It's a slow, quiet fade. The old ways are not so much defeated as they are forgotten. The new generation, your grandchildren, will grow up in a world that is very different from your own. They will have more opportunities, more freedom, and a new kind of power. They will still work the land, but they will work it for themselves, for their own families. Historians still argue about the precise moment the medieval period ended and the early modern period began. Was it the Black Death, the fall of Constantinople, or the invention of the printing press? For you, the answer is simple. The medieval world ended the day the lord of the manor died. And you were no longer a serf. You are still working the land, still tending your garden, but you are no longer bound to it. You are free. The sun is setting, and you are sitting by your hearth. The fire a comforting presence in the quiet of your home. You are an old woman, and you have seen it all. You have lived a hard life, full of pain and loss, but also full of love and laughter. You have survived the fields, the hunger, the childbirth, and the plague. You have lived through the end of an era, and you are a witness to the beginning of a new one. The future is uncertain, but it is also full of possibility. You close your eyes, and you feel the warmth of the fire on your face. You are at peace. The firelight dances on the rough-hewn walls of your cottage, casting long, peaceful shadows. The hum of the wind outside the door is a quiet, natural lullaby. You are safe, you are warm, and you are full. The aches and pains of the day are fading, and you feel a profound sense of calm washing over you. Let the worries of the world, the whispers of history, and the anxieties of a bygone era drift away on a gentle breeze. You have worked hard, you have survived, and now you have earned your rest. Let your breathing become slow and steady, your heartbeat soft and gentle. The world is at peace, and so are you. Your eyelids feel heavy, your body feels warm. The day is done, the journey is over. There is nothing left to do now but sleep.